Welcome back to the Junkman, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you with another video. What are we going to talk about today? Well, Thursday I did a video, the top 10 worst Star Wars accessories that came with Kenner action figures. And, as you can guess, most of those 10 were related to Return of the Jedi. And I've often heard it said, I've seen in the comment section of that video, I've heard it throughout the years since I've been collecting vintage Star Wars stuff, that the Return of the Jedi line went easy when it came to action figures with guns. That they mostly came with sticks and stones. Well, I guess not stones, sticks and bows and arrows and lame stuff like that. And now it got me to thinking, is that true? I've heard it said throughout the years that this was during the early 80s when there was kind of a crackdown of toy guns, cartoons with guns, and aiming guns to kids. And that Kenner didn't want to have a bunch of guns with these figures, didn't want to upset those parents. But is it Kenner's fault that a lot of these figures didn't come with guns? Or were they just making what they saw on the screen? Now, I'm not going to get into if George Lucas and the writers of Return of the Jedi wrote the movie taking out guns because they didn't want guns. We'll get into that. But I just wanted to see if there's really any kind of anything different about this line. Did Kenner go out of their way to put non-guns with all these figures? Or is it really just people overreacting or trying to make up a reason why so many of these figures came with lame accessories? And I don't really think most of them's lame, but we will take a look at them. But first, what I wanted to do is look at some other figures around 1983 to see if they came with guns. And I'm not going to go through a bunch of them. I went through a lot of them I could find between 82 and 84, right around that time period. And I'll be honest, cut to the chase, it was kind of a mixed bag. So let's just take a look at some of them. You got the A-Team action figures. There was 2 different sizes, and all of them came with guns. You can't do an A-Team line without guns. And then you have Dungeons and Dragons. No guns with them at all. But would you expect Dungeons and Dragons to have guns? I mean, even if parents wasn't upset the kids were playing with toy guns for their figures, the line wouldn't have came with guns anyway. It makes no sense. And then you have He-Man, which is probably the second biggest line in 1983, or close to it. And did it have guns? Well, it kind of had a mixture. It had some figures that came with like ray gun looking things. Nothing that looked like real guns that you would find in everyday use. But hey, most of the Star Wars guns don't look like that either. And a lot of them came with axes. Axes were really big in the early 80s. I realized this while looking around at figures. A lot of figures, even some with Star Wars, came with an axe. Axes were really big. But a lot of these came with axes and swords, and a few of them did come with guns. So it was kind of a mixed bag. And then you have something like Dan Magnum. That's right, Dan Magnum. How can you sell an action figure when you can't even get the character's name right in promotional material? Anyway, he didn't come with a gun, but I just wanted a reason to talk about Dan Magnum. Now, it's a limited figure, it's only one, so again, I just threw this up there because I wanted to talk about it. But let me pull up all the action figures released under Return of the Jedi. Now, I'm not going to look at the ones that crossed over from Star Wars all the way to Return of the Jedi, or the Empire figures, Return of the Jedi. Just going to look at the new figures released under Return of the Jedi, and I'm not going to pull up Power of the Force, because we're talking Return of the Jedi. Maybe I should have done that. I don't know. But let's pull up a picture. And here it is. All the action figures. I'm going to turn my head sometimes. I hope that don't. This is all of the figures, basic figures that were released for Return of the Jedi. Now, there is showing a boxed item here that most of you wouldn't consider an action figure, but it is part of the action figure line, although it's not part of the official number, the Max Rebo band. It was 3 figures in one. Of course, it didn't come with weapons. It shouldn't have come with weapons. Why would Max Rebo need to come with a weapon? Only weapon he has is his talent on the keyboard. And Cy Snoodle's weapon is a dang microphone. So let's take that one off the list. There we go. Marked off the list. So we got that out of the way. Another one we need to take off the list is droids released in Return of the Jedi line. Because let's face it, unless you're a bounty hunter, and there were no bounty hunter droids. There were some droids in Jabba's palace that worked for bounty hunters, but they were no official bounty hunters like IG-88. So we need to remove any droids released in the Return of the Jedi line before we start talking about it. And believe it or not, there was only one. That kind of shocked me. I was like, what? There was only one? I started thinking, I said, maybe I'm forgetting somebody here. So let me know if I was like, no, EV-9, no, that's Power of the Force. So we've got 8D8 from the Return of the Jedi, so let's X him off the list also. And then I said, hey, we got to take off all the action figures that did come with a gun. We can't bring them on this list. So we already got 2 figures taken off. Let's take off some more. Let's see what we took off. We took off a biker scout. Shows the biker scout comes with a gun. Now I'm taking off the one that come with a gun and it has a gun in the movie. So we had biker scout. We saw the biker scouts use a gun, so I took it off. We've got Han in trench coat. Has a gun in the movie. Has a gun in the figure. I took out Leia Bespin. Now some people might classify this as a stick. It does have a handle. To me, it's always been a gun. I know it's got a really long barrel on it, but to me, it's a gun. So I took it off because you see her with it in the movie. So I count it as a gun. That might be a controversial one right there, but it is a gun. Speaking of Princess Leia, we're going to take off Princess Leia Endor because we see her on Endor with a gun, and the figure comes with a gun. Next, we take out Luke Skywalker, the Jedi Luke Skywalker. Of course, that figure comes with a gun, and of course, we see him with a gun in the movie. Now, who do we take out? Prune Face. Prune Face is pretty hard to find. He's in some scenes of Endor, mostly at the Rebel briefing or the hangar. If you watch him get into the shuttle, you can see he's carrying a rifle like he comes with, or at least it looks like it. And he does actually have guns, even if not, if you can't see it clearly in the movie. Promotional pictures of him and everything, behind the scene photos shows him with that gun. So, Kenner had no choice to make him with that gun, and they did make him. So we'll take him off the list, and the other one is the Endor soldier. They had them in guns in the movie, so take them off too. They came with a gun, and they were good in the movie. So what do we have left? As you can see, the figures that come with guns, and should come with guns, are about right. So let's take another look here. This time I took off action figures that came with a gun, although maybe in the movie they didn't show them with a gun, but they came with a gun. Kenner said, hey, we don't know what this action figure would have had, but let's give him a gun. Let's give him a gun when we don't have to. None of these figures, you had to give them a gun, but it's kind of cool you did because it gave them something to play with, more than sticks and stones and arrows and all that. So let's see who we took off. We took off, what is it, ATST driver. He came with a gun. Didn't see it in the movie. B-Wing pilot, sure didn't see him with a gun, but Kenner gave him a gun. Nignum, however you say it. Lando's co-pilot, again, no reason for a gun, not seen in the movie with a gun, but he has a gun. So that's another figure they gave a gun, where if they were trying to not give guns to toys, that's another one they could have eliminated. And then you have 2 from Jabba's palace, which you could easily have gave them a staff like all the other Jabba people. But nope, Reyes and Squidface each have their own different unique gun. So, had to put X on them. Again, if Kenner didn't want these figures to come with a gun, or if Lucasfilm didn't want figures to come with a gun, unless they were in the movie with a gun, they could easily have put a staff with these 2. And I think that's it. But then I got to thinking, well, there's something else we have to mark off this list. Ewoks. Why? Because Ewoks wouldn't have a gun. I mean, it's written in a way where they would never have a gun. Even if Lucas wanted, I mean, he couldn't have Ewoks with it. It just goes against the whole Ewok thing for him to have the gun. So it's only fair that we take off the Ewoks. Let's take off Ewoks. That leaves us where Admiral Akbar, the Emperor, the Royal Guard, a Gamorrean Guard, and General Medine, and mostly Jabba's guards. Now, would Jabba guards come with a gun? Some of them could have. We actually see some of the guards use a gun. But when you think of the skiff and everything, what do you think most? The stick. The one where they try to poke Lando in. The one where they try to poke Luke into the Sarlacc pit. So most of those come with staffs, because that's what they had in the movie. If everybody on the sail barge and everything had a gun, the battle would have been over. When you write the story, you had to give them all sticks. It wasn't because they were trying to lessen gun use. It was because if you gave all Jabba's men gun, Luke and Han and all of them would have been killed. At least some of them. Luke might have got away because of the Force and everything. But Han, Chewbacca, somebody would have got shot. But of course, some of them did get shot. But this wasn't written because they didn't want them to have guns. It's because you had to do a story where they rescued Han Solo and you couldn't have them getting shot at the whole time for it to make sense. Now, before we eliminate all those working for Jabba, there's a few more we need to take off this list. How about the Emperor? There's no reason for him to come with a gun. He doesn't have a gun in the movie. Doesn't make sense for him to have a gun. He's beyond that. He doesn't need a gun. So let's X out the Emperor. What about the Royal Guards? Well, they don't have guns. We see them in the movie with big sticks. They do have sticks, these big poles. So we X them off the list. What about General Medine? Now, it would have been nice if he came with a gun, maybe, but why sell him with a gun when in the movie he has a white stick? I hate the white stick. You hate the white stick. We all hate the white stick. But but he has it in the movie. So, I mean, we are people that complain, he didn't have that in the movie. Well, they gave him something he had in the movie to shut us up. He had a white stick in the movie, so we got a white stick. Don't have to be happy about it, but why give him a gun when there was no use to give him a gun because he didn't have one in the movie? You could always just give him somebody else's gun if you really want him to have a gun that bad. So let's take off General Badine. And with that, we take off everyone that worked for Jabba. Jabba, I guess, just didn't want people to have weapons, I guess. I mean, like I said, you got the skiff guards. They don't need it. Gamorrean guards got an axe. I can't see him with a gun. I didn't see him in the movie with a gun. Any Gamorrean guard with a gun that I can remember. So, you know, they're off the list. Biff Fortuna, he's a diplomat. He's a, he's a spokesman. He's uses his mouth. His weapon in his mouth. He don't need a gun. He's walking around with a staff, although he didn't have a staff in the movie. They could have been giving him a gun. Didn't make much sense, but let's take him off. And now that we've taken off everybody, I think, let me double check my list. Yes, it looks like we've taken everybody off except one figure. Admiral Ackbar. Now, in the movie, Admiral Ackbar is not seen with a gun. I checked the briefing scene. He's not even seen with a stick. This is the only figure that I can find where Kenner had to make a decision themselves that said, hey, we're going to give him a gun and we're going to give him a stick. All the other ones, they use promotional show. All the other ones, they would use scenes from the movie, behind the scenes photos, or just really didn't make sense for him to have a gun. Again, makes no sense to give the Emperor a gun. So you take Admiral Ackbar. Makes sense to give him a gun. I mean, they gave the B-Wing pilot a gun, right? Why not give him a gun? And this is the only one out of the whole line for Return of the Jedi that I feel that they made a decision on their own, or was told maybe by Lucasfilm, to not give him a gun. So out of all the figures released, one of them, Admiral Ackbar, was given a stick. And I've checked behind the scenes photos. I checked every photo I could find to see if I could find an Ackbar standing around with a black stick. Maybe I missed it in the briefing. I didn't see that. I went back and watched it again. Maybe I couldn't remember him holding anything, but so far as I know, the only one that Kenner made a decision about was Admiral Ackbar. Everyone else, they came with a gun because they had a gun in the movie. Some of them Kenner gave a gun, although you didn't see them with a gun in the movie. And then you have the Ewoks that shouldn't have a gun. And then you have Jabba's Jabba's men that all have staffs and stuff like they should have because that's what the movie has. Again, you can say that Lucas wrote the Ewoks without a gun and Jabba's men without a gun because he didn't want to upset any groups that were upset that kids were playing with guns. But I really can't find any evidence to back this up. Now, there was a time period at this time when parents were getting upset about cartoon violence and toy violence and stuff. But looking at all the other toys released during that time period, looking at Return of the Jedi, if anybody made a decision throughout all this to not give somebody a gun, the only one that got a decision made was Admiral Ackbar. Now, tell me in the comments why I'm wrong. Well, thank you for watching, and I'm going to go play with my staff and my bows. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up, turn on my content. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, Jumpman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.